So welcome everyone to our panelist discussion. I'm sure we are all excited to finally have our postgraduates as well as our employees answer our questions today. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves and just tell us briefly who they are and what they're currently doing.
Hi everyone, I'm Kani. I'm currently a learning designer. I did my undergraduate studies in the Bachelor of Social Sciences, and I majored in politics and governance and industrial sociology. I did my honors as well in justice and transformation, and I'm very happy to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kani. Then we're going to go to Alison and Lutando.
Hi guys, I am Alison. I have a degree in organizational psychology and social development, and this year I'm doing a postgrad diploma in management, specializing in marketing, all at UCT. It's nice to be here.
Awesome. It's nice to have you. And then Lutando.
Hello everyone, I am Lutando Ndlela. I graduated in 2019. I did a BSc in mathematics and statistics. 2020, I worked as a data analyst, and in 2021, I'm doing my honors in computer science.
So the question is, what are the benefits and drawbacks of postgraduate studies versus working full-time? Seems like you've had the experience for both.
The biggest drawback for me was, since I'm doing my honors in something that isn't directly related to what I was doing in undergrad, the work I was doing wasn't really related to my honors program. So when I got in, I was a bit behind, and it took a bit of time to try and catch up to where everyone was. And I was thinking in my job, but the kind of thinking that was being done in the honors program was a bit higher than what I was doing when I was working. So it took a while to catch up to that pace. I think it also depends what kind of field you're in. So in my field, it's quite easy to go out and work with just an undergrad. And the difference between a person with an undergrad and an honors wouldn't be too big, because there's some slight urgency on when you start. So you do want to start a bit earlier, so you can get more experience. So it really depends on where you're working, in my opinion, what kind of field you're in.
Wonderful. I think that's very, very true, particularly for BA students or students who are requiring an honors or postgraduate in order to be the professional. One of the things that Kanye said that I didn't even think about was that, when we're in third year, if you've decided that you're going to get a job, you are so focused in getting a job that you don't even think, will the job be suitable for me? So that was very eye-opening for me. And thank you so much for the panelists. I think they've answered question 2 and question 3 already in their responses. Now, my next question is, what advice do you have for students who are settled in making this tough decision between pursuing postgrad or going into the world of work? And maybe take into consideration family dynamics. Maybe a student is required to go and work, but then maybe they want to pursue postgraduate studies. Think of that as well. How would you advise that student?
I think for me, like I said, I was just in a position where being a student and the constant sort of hamster wheel that you can be on in the grind can be quite taxing and in many ways very frustrating. So I got to a position where that just wasn't going to cut it for me anymore. And I really just wanted to be put to the test and to be able to just contribute somewhere where I was welcome and where I could introduce my skills and my strengths, but also be able to learn a great deal. So, personally, also being raised by a single mom and our financial and family situation, that's always weighing in the back of your mind. Being a student, it was fun for a time, sort of being paid to just fully be completely selfish and focused on your studies and learning and being introduced to all these great concepts and things. And but after a certain point, that just that wasn't just going to cut it for me. And so my advice really is, really take the time to be mindful about where you're at personally, with where you are in your journey and what's the next steps. If you're not emotionally and mentally, personally ready to take that step, then don't do it. But really try and exercise all of your options and speak to whoever it is that you need to speak to, and open your mind to a variety of different possibilities and perspectives and people's experiences, and fully do like a full-on download, updating analysis of where you're at and what you're prepared and not prepared to do. I was very, very clear on what it was that I was prepared to put up with and what I'm not prepared to put up with. And a great deal of that was influenced by my internship, but also by my studying experience. And so I now find myself in a great ideal situation where I can also still dabble in my postgraduate studies and finish them and maybe even move on to whatever it is that I need to move on to. But I'm in a situation that is perfectly ideal and suited to that and to me and where I'm at in my journey and in my process.
Yeah.
I had no idea what they saw taking a chance on me, but I'm very, very grateful that they did. And I'm very, very grateful of where I found myself. And most importantly, I was ready, just emotionally, I was ready to take that next step, because, mental health and things like that can also really play a huge impact on how you feel about yourself and your self-esteem, and whether or not you can be productive or not, whether or not you can actually be of value and contribute to people, to society. It really can take a toll on you. So besides being on the academic hamster wheel, doing the work in terms of personally your emotional and mental development of where you're at and what you plan to see, and really just investing the time and checking in constantly with yourself. But the biggest advice that I have is just don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself. My favorite quote is by William Blake. He says, if the doors of perception were cleansed, then everything would appear to man as it is, which is infinite. There are infinite possibilities and infinite situations that you can find yourself in. So don't limit yourself by a limited perception or fixed idea that you've had. I was applying to things that I probably had no business applying to, but I was doing it because I was like, damn it, let me in, and finally I was let in, and I was like, oh, I like it here, so apply to everything, look at everything, read. I was reading books and all kinds of things, just like, I'm going to get ready for this, because it's not an easy journey. And there's a lot of kinks and things that you have to work out in. And the stakes are high because you have people that are really investing financially and time-wise and resource-wise into you and what you can do for them and the problems that you can solve for them. So that's not something you should go into absent-mindedly, but you really need to be ready and in a place where you are able to actually do it the best that you can.
Wow, that's amazing. Oh my goodness. I wish I had this session when I was in my third year. I seriously wish I had this session. I love that. Personalize the journey, do a self-assessment. Check your own pros and cons. As much as it is nice to have other people as a point of reference, and but then also personalize it. What works for you and in your own journey and in your own particular context. Now, Lutando, I have a question for you from one of our students. She's asking, do you think work experience and exposure is more important or beneficial than studying further, or does it depend on what you want to do?
Okay, so the way I see it is, when we get into work or when we get into a university course, once we're in, we put our heads down and then we work at it, right? So I think the issue might be that we don't lift our heads enough. So we tend to want to work at this thing and we stay working at it until we're done working at it. So something like if you're studying, right, something like an internship is a way for you to lift your head, because you get a better view of what you're actually doing right now and what others are doing. So I think if wherever you are, you're working at something, you should from time to time lift your head to see what's happening. So that would be an internship, right? And different people need different lengths to lift your head for. An internship could be a month or what. Some people need to actually go away from the situation for about a year. It's actually what kind of person that you are and which situation you're in. So similar thing to what Kanye was saying. So I can't say that one or the other is more important, but I do think both of them, you need to be doing both of them.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lutando. Now, Alison, we have one last question, and it's a question that it's a question for the people who are doing maybe call them the non-conventional qualifications. Maybe the qualification, when you're going into these career expo where they've got this top 5 career and your one is never there. So if that type of students want to work next year, what is it that they can do this year to make them more employable? Maybe think BA student or any other field that's not really popular in the market currently.
I would say, I think I also sort of fall into that bracket, even though I didn't do a BA, I did a Bachelor of Social Science, but I did organization psychology and I did social development, a very odd combination, but a very unique combination. So then I had to now think, okay, fine, I didn't do a traditional example engineering or accounting degree, but I did do organization psychology, I did social development. Yes, there's only an organizational field, but there's no really it's not, you have to it's a process to get there. But I think what happens is you need to look at what skills have you acquired that can set you apart in another field. So it's not necessarily about the actual degree, but it's what skills has that degree taught you that are now going to enable you to perform a job that you want to perform. So it's not looking at it, okay, you have a BA degree in social development. Okay, but what skills has that taught you? You can apply for other fields outside of the traditional field of social development. So I think it's important to really think and jot down the skills that this course has taught you, even though it's not a conventional course. Because I think what I've learned from Janine is that that's how you're going to sell yourself to people, is the skills you've learned. Because everybody else might have the same degree or a better degree in line with their qualification, but sometimes you have the skills that are needed but not necessarily the qualification. So I think you need to focus more on what the qualification has taught you as opposed to the degree itself. It's wonderful to have the degree, but employers will look for what you can do for them. So it's up to you to think, okay, I learned problem solving. I learned how to create this, to do this. Okay, those are my skills that I can put forward now when the employee says, this is the job. Fine, I didn't have that degree, but these are the skills I've learned in this course through so and so. So don't get too stuck on the degree, but think of the skills that it taught you and sell those skills to whoever's going to be hiring you. Yeah.
Amazing. Sure. Why didn't I have this when I was in third year? Oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh well, it's okay. I had to learn the hard lessons. So I wanted to find out from the students, our participants who are here, do you guys have any questions that you would like to ask our panelists?
Portia, you also have some great questions. I know from our little workbook that we put together on the back end. So whilst you are thinking, maybe one of those last 3 ones is also quite good to ask.
Yes, and I'm not sure who touched on this gap year after postgraduate. So can that, because my question was, can that limit students in any way if they decide to take a gap year after they complete their undergraduate? Maybe they just want to chill. Do you think that that's advisable? Or would you recommend that they do that if they're feeling like, oh no, man, I just want to just chill for a year or 2 and not do anything?
I don't think, not necessarily chill, but I think if you know what you want to study, go straight into studying what you want to study. Don't give it a gap, because if you are sure and you just want to rest, then maybe see if you can do your program over 2 years. But I don't think just sitting is, in these days and times, is something advisable to do. But if you don't know what to do, maybe take an internship in something you think you want to do, because if it's not something you want to do, you'll know it when you're in that field, and like the chances are you're going to find something you want to do when you're in that field. That might not have been the internship you took, but then you actually get to know yourself. I feel like sometimes we're learning so much theory that we don't actually know if it's what we want to do until we do the job. Sometimes you will learn all this theory thinking it's what you want to do, and only when you take that leap of faith to do that internship, to do that job, taking a year off to do something that you find actually I like this. And then you can go always do a postgrad in what you found. But if you do know what you want to do it. Like I have friends who last year they finished, they were like, nope, I'm not studying any further. I'm going to go work. They got internships, some got jobs, they're working, they're happy. They're not interested in postgrad now, but they say they might come back later. I have a friend who studied something, she didn't like it, she pivoted into something totally different. So I think it's up to the person. If you know what you want to do, take an internship, do it. If you don't, as well, do something in that year. I don't think sitting is just advisable, but I would say do something with that time. Don't waste the time. Even maybe if you're not working full time, take on part time things, volunteer, work every then and there, just to try and get your mind, going around what you want to study. But I think just try to keep your brain going. Don't just be in that mentality of sitting and doing nothing. I think that's more what I'm saying is don't do nothing, but do something to try to get you closer to where you want to be or discover more about yourself in that year and what you want to do.
Awesome. I like that. Don't be stagnant. Don't just do nothing. I really, really like that. If there are no questions, I would like each panelist just to tell me, just to think back on your specific third year, when you were in your third year, considering maybe you already made your decision that you're either going to go full-time postgrad or full-time working. So what advice would you give that person? I know you've evolved now, you're no longer that person. What are the three things that you would advise that person to do? So think back when you're in your third year with all that you know now. So what three things would you share with that person who is you, by the way? And we're going to start with Kanye.
Well, my advice would be, number one, knowledge really is key, and information and it's really power. And before I make any decision in life, I try as much as possible to inform myself as best as I can on the different options and ideas and things that are out there that could greatly inform my decision and my perspective on what it is that I'm trying to do. So not just being stuck on a academic state of mind all the time, but really talking to people and consulting with people, because people have so many different perspectives and great nuggets of information, even if it's where do I even go to look for jobs, or what certain sites or apps or things are available that I can consult. And even a program like this is excellent. It's really, really excellent to get your mind really thinking and exposed to all the different things that you have to consider and factor into your decision making that are out there. So really open yourself to that and empower yourself with knowledge and empower yourself with great information. I would say that's number one that was really up there for me at that stage in my life. And also number two, again, like you said, Portia, personalize the journey and personalize the experience. I don't remember a great deal about my third year, but I definitely remember the personal things and the personal growth that occurred in that year that really catapulted me to where I am now. And people tend to neglect that, which is a sad, sad mistake, because it can really knock you off your pivot if you're not emotionally and mentally, personally in a place where you can be your best and optimize your tools and your resources and the things that you can do. So even if you are taking a gap year or studying, take the time to really invest in your personal growth and development and growing your awareness of yourself. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are the sort of things that you're willing to tolerate or not? What are some things that are just huge red flags for you really drawing up boundaries and being clear on certain things is really important, because that also greatly speaks to the kinds of opportunities that may be open to you and what people might see in you. You know, it's very true that people don't just necessarily just hire you straight because of what you studied and what's your degree. They hire you a lot mostly to do with who you are as a person and your values and your expertise, your experience, your skills, and what you bring to the table personally as a person, as a whole entity. So really take the time to invest in developing and growing and nurturing yourself so that you are in a place where you can tackle anything that comes your way. That's a huge thing for me. And number 3, I would say be proactive. Don't be on flight mode, you know, and don't just expect things to just come at you randomly. You know, we're not all that lucky. Sometimes I realize that like applying for a job is almost like a full-time job in itself, especially if you're doing it properly. You are up looking at those emails, you are up on LinkedIn first thing in the morning, or on Indeed or Sangonet and all these different websites. You're checking the emails, you're replying to things, you're updating your cover letter, you're updating your CV, you're going to interviews, taking you to who knows where and what. You're planning your trips there, how you're going to get there, what you're going to wear. It's a whole thing. It's a whole process, which if you're not ready for, can really take you for a loop. But you really need to be proactive and almost aggressive if you really want results. You know, really just get in there and you know, don't take things lying down and don't take things too easily. But also, of course, always check in with yourself and where you're at so that you're not overexhausting yourself or pushing yourself or breaking boundaries that don't need to be broken, and putting yourself in unsafe situations as well, especially when you're looking for work. That was a huge thing. You know, communicating with your parents, your guardians, friends, you know, always consulting with people as well, just to make sure that you're safe and you're not, be clear on the kinds of situations that you're willing to do or put yourself, or the lengths that you're willing to go to achieve whatever it is that you need to achieve. But be proactive. You know, really, it really is like a full-time job when you're looking at those things. Or even if you're looking at postgraduate, really, if you're being proactive and really doing the research and speaking to who you need to speak to, Google the heck out of it, you know, like you really need to be proactive if you really want to get results, and hopefully get results as quickly and efficiently as possible. So those are like my 3 things that I learned my third year self that I would tell.
Sure, and I'm sure after that third year self heard it, they're gonna be on fire. Sure, that's amazing. I think one of the things that I took from you is that knowledge is power. You know, research. Now we're gonna go to Alison. Alison, what are your top 3 points?
I agree with like everything that Kanye said. Like third year shows you flames. Third year in the midst of pandemic, what an extreme sport. But yeah, my third year was quite not how I imagined it, because obviously COVID, pandemic, you know, finally everybody in final year has this thing of you work together with people to get through your final year. I don't know if you know that thing where everybody's just like, we're all gonna graduate, like nobody's staying behind. Like that team spirit. So being at home during a pandemic and not having that is very hard. And I'm sure most of third years now you're facing that. There's that complacency, that tiredness, that you feel like you're the only one pushing, you're the only one looking for postgrad studies, you're the only one, if you're going to work, looking for a job. So I think it's best to always have a group of people who you guys chat about the course, you chat about, you know, going forward, job opportunities, you share job opportunities, you share knowledge, because knowledge is power. Not gonna lie, that's one of the things. It's not. It's also about who you know. So networking is very important. There's something somebody else might know that's a perfect job opportunity for you. It might not be for them, but it's perfect for you. But if you don't speak to them and actually tell them, hey, I'm looking for something like this, you might never get that opportunity. So networking is very important in third year. I think that's the biggest thing, is speak about, you don't have to go into detail, but, you know, find a group of people who are heading in the same direction as you. That helps so much because it keeps you accountable with work. You're not slacking, you're keeping up with deadlines. So make a community by yourself, because it can be very isolating. I think that's the one thing that's going to push you to actually graduate, is have people who are walking with you so that you can all graduate. That's the other thing. As well as with degree, with studying postgrad, I didn't get into the postgrad I wanted to get into because it got cancelled. And then the one I wanted to get into, I didn't get into. And so then I was left with, do I study? Do I go work? And then I was like, no, I can't just be idle and do nothing. I'm going to go to something I wanted to do initially when I'd registered. So then I went into marketing. But in that, I was okay. I thought ahead. I did my research to be like, hey, I wanted to do this. It's not available, but I can always pivot into this through this. So as Kanye said, research is important. Know if you're going to work, that, okay, if I work, I can come back and do this. If I'm going to go study, I can move into this program. So I think it's just jog your memory around those things, research different ways you can get into the program, even if you don't get into this one, how you can slide into the second semester or in a master's to get to you want to go. So start thinking about that at the back of your head in third year, because you can't leave that up to honors. It's stressful enough. Probably the last one would be try as much to really enjoy the last year of your undergrad. I feel like so much we want to get to the end, but we don't realize that you'll never get that year back. Honors and working afterwards bring its own pressure, but I think you also need to be kind to yourself to actually be like, hey, I spent 3 years, I spent 4 years on this degree. I'm working the best that I can. Let me also take care of myself. I'm not going to neglect your mental health. Don't do that at all. Take care of yourself and just live life. Don't just only be focused on studying. Do other things. I think last year was the year that I did the most things that I ever did, different things that I did in my capacity, but that actually made me work even harder in my degree as well, because I learned new skills, I got new fire, new passion, etc. So also pique your interest in other things. Don't just be doing your third year, because it can be so consuming that it might just do more harm than good if it's the only thing you actually really just all the time it's books, all the time it's books. You're not seeing friends, you're not doing what you want to do. So just also be aware of taking care of you, the person, otherwise you can't function. Yeah, I'd say that.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Alison. You've got a clap from Kauta. Yeah, thank you so much. Now, lastly, Lutando.
So my 3 things are, the first thing would be to down somewhere. So you need to question why you do the things that you do. So in my undergrad, I found myself doing difficult modules just because they were difficult, just because I found them challenging. I didn't particularly enjoy some of them, but I only realized that a bit later down the line, that I only enjoyed the fact that this thing was challenging. And in another aspect, the sport that I was playing, I was just playing it because I was good at it. I wasn't actually enjoying it. I was just good and I enjoyed being good at it. So if I'd questioned myself beforehand and said, do I actually enjoy doing this thing? Then I probably wouldn't have done it. Yeah, so that's the first one. The second would be to be kind to yourself. So you need to do things for your present self and your future self. You need to be kind to your present self. So if you realize that, you know what, I'm taking a lot of toll here, I'm taking a lot of strain, you need to do something about it. It needs to become urgent. It needs to become your top priority. You need to become your top priority. Now, I'm not saying that being kind to yourself means that, you know, you can slack off and stuff, because that's not being kind to your future self. So try to be kind to your future self and to your current self. The third thing would be to have confidence in what you can offer. So before you can do that, though, you need to know what you can do and what you can't do. You need to be okay with that. You need to be okay with knowing that I don't know how to do this thing, but I do know how to do this thing. And you can choose to either improve what you don't know, or work on what you don't know and improve what you do know. So first you need to know what you know and what you don't know. And then you can have confidence to apply to places, as Kanye was saying, you can apply to places that you shouldn't be applying, because you understand that even though I don't have this qualification, I know that I can provide what needs to be provided in this sphere. So yeah, those are my 3 points.
Kanye and Lutondo, while I have you on the line, what was your experience of the mock interview? Because obviously all the students here haven't done it. Would you recommend doing it or not? Like, honestly, we value whatever you have to share.
Do it. It's very beneficial. Yeah, no, seriously, I learned a lot. It was actually quite an emotional experience for me. I learned a lot, and a lot of my interviews, even that I did for jobs, was online, and that in itself is a whole new, different kind of animal. Especially if you're someone who thrives on personal contact with people and taking cues and things like that. Doing something on a laptop, as important as a job interview, is quite something. So there's no harm in doing an experience like this where you can actually learn, and it's a safe experience, and you can take a lot of knowledge and comfortability in just familiarizing yourself with the whole process. Do it. It's really, really beneficial because it will serve you in good stead for the future. Because yeah, especially if you're not familiar with interviews in general, but also on the laptop virtually, it's a great learning curve.
Kanye, and you don't have to answer this question, but if you wanted to, what was the hardest part for you about it? Because you mentioned it was quite an emotional journey. What was it specifically that was your learning opportunity?
I learned how green I was and how slightly naive I was about my expectations. I remember just finding the right lighting was a huge thing. And if you remember, Janine, I put my laptop on the washing machine.
Yes.
That is what I resorted to get the optimum lighting and situation. That stood out for me. Get your lighting right. But do what you have to do. If you have to do it on the washing machine in the bathroom, then do it. But that was a huge thing for me. And just also not going into it blindly. Again, like it's really like a job. Like really tackle this kind of thing and really arm yourself with knowledge, and don't just go into it like, hey, it's me. I mean, it's great that you're here, but you really have to have some meat behind a lot of what it is that you're going to be saying, anticipating the kind of questions that you're going to get, and do your research. Very important, so that you don't sound completely ignorant and like you just came off the street and just decided to do a job interview. Like really show that you're invested in what you're doing at the present moment and that you're invested in them and what it is that you want to do. That was a huge thing for me.
I agree with Kanye. You should definitely do it. You need to get comfortable with these kinds of things. And you need to prepare. And that's the biggest thing. Sometimes we're too scared to prepare. And this makes you comfortable with preparing also. So yeah, definitely do it. I think it's a no-brainer on my side.
Thank you for sharing your experiences. I know I put you a bit on the spot there. Didn't say I was going to ask you that, but I just thought it would be valuable because you've had the experience to share what your learnings and opportunities and expectations were.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think the one thing that has been consistent in everything that each panelist has said is that this is your journey. This is your journey. So own it, personalize it. Don't compare your journey with another person. And, just do things according to what you studied and what your own personal vision and goals are for yourself. And I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our panelists. Thank you so, so much for coming in and just giving us all that you know and all that you have, being present in the session. I speak for all the students that the session was worthwhile. I also gained a lot of wisdom, and I'm sure Janine as well as Dion also wrote some stuff for our future careers. Thank you so much, guys. And it just goes to show the caliber of our students.